Hi everybody, this is Craig Tanner for The Mindful Eye and the photo of the week on the Daily Critique. This week's photo of the week was created by Alfred, who is an intermediate photographer from New Zealand. Alfred shot this with a Canon 1DS Mark II, 17 to 40 zoom at 17 millimeters. It's a full frame sensor camera. That's the effective focal length, super wide here. ISO 100, f/18. In 1 second I want to come back and talk about those camera settings because they're having an effect on what we're seeing here on the image in a dramatic way, particularly the shutter speed. Under the backstory, Alfred said that he found this shrub, which was just dead and down, and he liked the detail in the branches. And he said that he started to play around with this, put it in different places. He says he likes to pick a subject and work it. He said one of the things that he did with this was he put it into the surf, and as it started to move around, it made him think about being in situations in life where you're just kind of being taken in a direction. And he said that he felt like this particular picture illustrated that feeling that he was having the best out of about 100 shots that he took on this one setup. And just go ahead and say something right there that I think could be a great takeaway from the video today. And that is, a lot of times we're trying to decide what to shoot, and we could step back a little bit and just say, how am I feeling today? And how am I feeling about the things that I'm seeing? I'm a big believer in the idea of carrying a journal so that we can capture ideas when they pop into our head. One of the things that we could write down is something like Alfred has described here. You could write down how you're feeling, and then if you want to go beyond documentary, if you want to start to illustrate a mood or the way you feel about a subject, then you could use the words that you write down to fire a concept for a shot. Wanted to mention just something basic technical here about the shutter speed. Alfred says he's working with a shutter speed of 1 second, and this is surface breaking waves. I've found that shutter speeds around this time, around 1 second, maybe a little bit shorter, going to a half second down to a quarter second, or maybe slightly longer, can do a really beautiful job of combining a feeling of some texture that's left on the water with implied movement to simplify the surface of the water, so that we can start to see a feeling of maybe overall shape and movement, or a simpler line, or more elegant line, instead of a lot of contrast and ideas that are broken up. So just wanted to mention that if you're more of a beginning photographer and you're at the beach, you're at a place where there's surf action, you might play around with shutter speeds in this range, both on the tripod and off of the tripod, and see what you think. See how that has an effect on the way your subject is being rendered. One other thing I wanted to mention here is that Alfred did stop all the way down to f/18, and that could cause an overall lack of sharpness, but he's trying to imply motion here, and so that's not really an issue. And stopping down this far has obviously, at the lowest ISO on this camera, ISO 100, has helped him to get to this slow shutter speed. Wanted to mention those technical things. There are a lot of things that I love about this image. One of the things that I really enjoy is just the simplicity of it. It's a very classical image to the extent that Alfred definitely has one main subject here. It's a center of energy. It really draws your eye. It's in a dynamic place. There's quite a bit of leading line and leading energy that also moves out to it, and I think that's really beautiful. It's obviously the main subject, and there are a couple of things that are doing that. One is that it is different. So it's the one thing that's different than the surface of the water, but color theory is helping to make this very dramatic too. Cyan and tan, really beautiful color combination, and then color combinations around that, or color complementary combinations, cyan and tan, violet and yellow, and you get a sense of that here. And then moving into orange and blue, and some burnt reds, red and cyan, so on and so forth. A really powerful sense of complementary color, and not only having this one subject that's different than the surface of the water, but also energies that have been juxtaposed. A real simple design concept is sort of a cross-hatching of diagonal energies, and a lot of the water ends up at the end turning in this direction, and then you have the overall energy of this as a subject is moving counter to that, and it implies at least part of one of the major diagonals, and that is very beautiful to me in terms of giving this image a dynamic feeling, but also tying it together and playing or implying the major diagonals. And this one is not relative to your framing device. It works great square, rectangle, panoramic, just doesn't matter. Those major diagonals are implied. We in the West move in a very on a diagonal in a very powerful way from left to bottom right. Um, and so using or working with the idea of the major diagonals, if we're trying to work traditionally, can play really well. Another thing that I enjoy about this image is the balance of the warmth of what looks like maybe the sun or post-sunset sky, where you get color in the water that is orange or pushing towards red. And I love the way over on this side of the image is sort of like a teeter-totter. That helps to balance this, helps to take us out here so that we do visit this part of the image, because warm reds, yellows, oranges, they have a real high visual priority. So that warm area pulls us over into the other part of the image. To me, there's sort of three parts: this main subject, this movement, this kind of blue and cyan, and then almost a feeling of a negative space has been created above that. And I love the way that this draws me out into that image in a dynamic, very balanced way on the diagonal. The other thing that I really enjoy here is the way the corners are playing out. They're darkened. I don't know how much of that has been done in post. You get a real strong sense on a very simple subject where it might be easy to get pulled out of corners because of all this movement. You really fall off to, in some places, a rich black. Down here there's more detail. And I love the way those corners become visual stops and help to keep me in the image and keep from getting pulled out. Just so many things to enjoy about this image. And I just, in passing in the very beginning, talked about the sense of movement. But it's really beautiful here, seeing the water sort of moving in one direction and flowing in a way that's very much sort of an overall pattern, and then the sense of this other type of movement that to me is much more delicate and much more ethereal and sort of gauzy. It's creating a different texture. And it's palpable to me. It's almost like I feel like that the shrub is something that I could reach out and touch. And I do love the place in the middle of it where it does start to get sharp and it does start to set up something that's concrete. That's a real powerful concept. You see a lot of people, me included, working the abstract spectrum of things where we just imply motion everywhere. But one of my photographic heroes, Ernst Haas, was a huge influence on lots of color photographers, and one of the things that he played around with was abstractions on long shutter speeds and actually moving the camera. But in so many of his published shots where he did that technique, instead of just having everything feeling like it's blurred, he would choose shots where there was one thing that had a sense of sharpness or of reality, normal reality, and then that's juxtaposed with the other things they're moving. And I think that is an extremely powerful construct visually and creatively, and in a lot of respects it's unique to photography, the idea that we can imply motion and stop motion all in one frame. Very, very powerful concept, and it's a big takeaway from the video today. You might play around with different scenarios where you can pull that off. Something is sharp but almost everything else is blurred, can really affect the viewer with a sense of time that can have a big emotional impact psychologically on the viewer. Really stunning image. I want to say a huge thank you to Alfred for sharing it with us at the Mindful Eye, and we hope to see you again real soon on the Mindful Eye and another episode of Daily Critique. Hope everybody has a great weekend.